The countryside has always been the first thing that comes to mind for many of us when it comes to a peaceful lifestyle where one can leave behind the busy mentality of the city. People prefer spending their leisure time in the countryside for this very reason. However, the unseen truth is that this sentiment is only held by people who already have a stable life provided to them through the city. The fact of the matter is that the people who actually live in the countryside do not have anything special to think of or to be proud of. If anything, the lack of work and income in families had been the main cause for many families that have lived in the countryside to look for opportunities by moving into the city, where they will have an easier time finding work in order to provide for their family. The protagonist of today's story is no exception. Greetings, salutations, and welcome to our channel. Today, we'll be covering the story of a family from China that went through desperate times, but managed to pull through simply through the unbreakable love between a mother and a son. As always, do not forget to leave a like on this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already. Make sure to press that bell notification button too, in order to ensure that you will never miss a single one of our uploads. Well, without further ado, let's dive into the story. Let us take a look back at China in the year 2010. Our story starts off with a man named Bo, who was born in a native village with no prior exposure to the world outside of it. While he was growing up in the countryside, he found himself suddenly infatuated by a beautiful girl named Mei Li in their youth. Their daily lifestyle didn't differ at all from the rest of the people who lived in the village, as they found themselves working the fields almost all day, and even if it was difficult, they always believed that they could get through anything as long as they had each other. The love that Bo had for Mei Li went so far that he started to take up more work in order to earn more, effectively providing for his family. The real reason why he picked up all that work, however, was because they had another member joining their family soon. As time passed, Mei Li gave birth to a beautiful baby boy named Lu. Both Bo and Mei Li found themselves to be happy beyond belief, as they started to truly believe that nothing could pull them apart. But as they say never. As Lu reached the ripe age of 7, Bo and Mei Li found themselves in a tough financial situation. Even if Bo scoured the district to look for extra jobs in order to earn money, he couldn't find a single opportunity. Because of this, they had a hard time even coming up with money for food. After a thoughtful discussion at the dinner table, Bo and Mei Li decided that they needed to do something in order to make things easier for Lu and their entire family. Something had to change. Bo eventually ended up coming up with the solution of moving to a nearby industrial city in order to earn enough for the entire family. The plan was to look for good jobs and opportunities to move their entire family into the city, and until that can be sorted, Bo could earn enough money for his entire family to live a normal and happy life again. Just before Bo left the countryside for his job in the city, he hugged Mei Li and promised her that he will call her every day and he will send money whenever possible. He hugged her again and asked her to stay calm and that everything will be alright, before leaving the native village that he grew up in. Mei Li found herself in a very stagnant position, where she diligently waited to hear from her husband every single day. She would always rush to the post office in the evening in order to wait for her husband's call eagerly. The only shining beacon that still remained in sight in her life was her son. Whatever free time Mei Li had, she spent it with Lu, educating him and helping him with everything. She made sure to never scold Lu to the point where there would be a decadence between the mother and the son. She slowly started getting used to this lifestyle, knowing full well that her husband is working on the daily to provide for them, and that the best is yet to come. Bo kept his promise, as he called the village post office, asking for his wife every single day. He always made sure to constantly send her money, and made sure that they were well cared for. Bo only got to reunite with his family once every 6 months, and even then, his stay is rather brief. However, that brief moment ends up being the happiest moment for Mei Li and little Lu. They both knew the sacrifice Bo was making in order to ensure that Mei Li and Lu were well taken care of, after all. However, all these things ended up being pleasant memories, as things started to change over time. Mei Li noticed that Bo started to call less frequently than usual. Even with the change, Mei Li always remained hopeful, as she always found herself going to the post office at night, as she waited for his call. But the calls rarely came. 7 years later, things took a tragic turn, as she completely lost touch with her beloved husband. The number that he left with his family for communication purposes stopped working, and Mei Li had no idea of the exact details as to where he worked. Eventually, Mei Li found herself being a single mother that had to take care of her child all by herself. People in the village started speculating, as they kept on saying that Bo had betrayed his family, or that he has found another woman in the city. They even went as far as to say that it had happened a long time back, even when he still kept in touch with Mei Li. However, Mei Li's faith in her husband remained strong, as she shrugged off the rumors. Her belief in Bo remained, as she truly believed that he could never do something like that to his own family. In order for her to survive, and her son Lu to survive, Mei Li started selling fruit by the road. While the money that she made barely covered their essential needs, she never gave up. During all of this, she still waited for her husband to come back one day, but her wish never came true. As Lu grew older and noticed the hard work his mother put in order to make ends meet, he started helping out however he can in order to make life easier for her. However, by this time, the very home that they lived in had started to fall apart. Lu noticed how desperate his mother was in order to turn things around. But his young mind could not think of any other way to help her. So, the only thing he could do, and he did so swimmingly, was to be supportive of her and stay by her side. As they were working through all of their problems, something that Mei Li had been afraid of suddenly happened. One day, they found themselves interrupted by the arrival of a rather expensive car that parked right in front of their house. When Bo stepped out of the car, Mei Li and Lu were overjoyed, but the joy didn't stay long, as they noticed that Bo's face didn't show the same enthusiasm. Bo didn't rush to his wife to hug her as he usually did, and instead just stood there, frozen in place. He went up to her and spoke to her directly. "I know I've been horrible to you, but there's no other way to do this. I've met someone else, and I already have a child with her. To be honest, I do not see my future with you. Again, I'm very sorry it happened this way." Mei Li was shell-shocked to hear these words come out of Bo. All of the times when she had dreamed of this day, she had never imagined that it would go like this. Even if it was obvious for many other people in the village, she refused to believe it. However, the exchange did not stop there, as Bo then approached Lu, who was 15 years of age by now. He spoke to his son bluntly as he said, "Lu, I have business in the city, and I believe that it'll be best if you stayed with me. You will get to attend college and be successful one day. I can provide for you, and you will get to live a comfortable life there. A kind of life where you won't be able to provide for yourself if you stay here. Now, you have a choice to make as to who you want to stay with. You can either stay here with your mother, or you can stay in a huge house in the city with me." Nobody could have imagined what Mei Li felt at this time as she listened to all of this, but the answer that Lu gave to his father surprised her even more. "I want to live in the city." Those words shocked Mei Li, but Lu continued on. "I'm already an adult, and I have the right to choose my own path. There are definitely no opportunities for me here." Bo simply grinned and nodded at Mei Li, and that very evening, Lu found himself leaving his mother and the village behind with his father, as they found themselves riding towards the city. Mei Li found herself at a very dark place after this happened, as she lost the one person that stayed by her side through all of these troubles. The only thing that willed her to stay alive was her son, as she wanted to stay as an option in case Lu doesn't get along with his new stepmother. Mei Li strived to stay just so that she could be there for Lu in case he changed his mind or wanted to return to her. While all her relatives and neighbors called Lu a traitor for leaving his mother this way, the love in Mei Li's heart for her son never wavered. Just like that, a woman who once had a beloved husband and a spirited son ended up lonely. Even with the traumatic thoughts, she lived on, starting a small farm in order to help those around her and keep herself afloat. While she worked hard, business wasn't as good as she wished it could be. Things were turning worse by the day when something happened that changed everything. One day, Mei Li got an envelope with no return address written on it. Inside, she found a check for $1,000, with a note that came along it which said, "I love you." Mei Li initially thought that she had mistakenly received it, and for quite some time, she refrained from even using the money. However, she was taken aback when she received another envelope next month as well, and it had the exact same amount of money with the same note that said, "I love you." She proceeded to receive the same envelope every month. After some time passed and spring arrived, she received a letter alongside the check this time. The letter said, "How are you, Mom? I know that you love me, and you must have suffered a lot since I left you. Mom, I love you very much, and I miss you. You should know the real reason as to why I left with my father. I just wanted to help you. My father gives me money, and I send it to you, so you do not have to work so hard. Please take care of yourself and don't worry about me. I will definitely come home one day. You will always be with me, Mother, and I will never leave you again. I will take you to live with me when I grow up." Mei Li was taken aback by this, as she had never received anything like this. She started tearing up as soon as she realized that her son did what he did purely for her sake. After all, the love that her son had for her was strong, and he even lied in order to provide for her. A few years later, Lu came back to the village and took his mother with him to the city, where they both lived a happy life in the house that he owned there. The two live happily and healthily to this day. Anyway, that marks the end of this story. So, did you like how this story turned out? Let us know in the comments below. As always, if you like the story, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more stories just like this. Be sure to share it with your friends as well. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.